And we are finally live again, folks, and welcome to another great interview, another episode of Dojo Live, connecting experts like you. And as ever, we have my fellow teammate, Tulio Siragusa from LA. Hi, Tulio.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Carlos. Hi, Peter.
It's great to have you here again, Tulio. So thank you for that. And this is Carlos Ponce in broadcasting from our Mexico City offices, Nearsoft's Mexico City offices. And for today's interview, we're going to be having a conversation with Peter Voss. Peter, he is the CEO and chief scientist at Aegoai. And hi, Peter. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely, it's our pleasure. Okay, so Peter, I understand that today's topic, or you chose the topic for today as the third wave of artificial intelligence, or the quest for a truly intelligent personal assistant. So I would like to start off by firstly tell us a little bit about you, about Aegoai, and of course, then you can tell us about why you chose this particular topic, and then we will take it from there. Again, thank you for being here in our show.
Sure, great, thank you. So I'll try and condense my history a little bit. Last time I gave a talk, I started off when I was 10 years old, and how I dreamt about computerizing everything, but I won't go through all of the stages. So I started off as an electronics engineer and had a company doing that. Then I fell in love with software, and my electronics company turned into a software company. I actually developed what's now called an ERP package, which is basically a comprehensive accounting package. And our company grew very, very rapidly. We went from 0 to 400 people, and we did an IPO. So that was all very exciting. But when I sold my interest in the company, I considered what do I really want to do? What problem do I want to solve? And the thing that struck me is that software in general is really not very smart. It's stupid. It can't think, it can't reason, it can't really adapt to circumstances. If the programmer didn't think of everything, then basically, things don't work very well. And so I then decided when I sold my interest in the company to study intelligence. What is intelligence? What's reality? How do we know anything? And how do we measure intelligence? How does human intelligence differ from animal intelligence, et cetera, et cetera? And I spent 5 years actually doing that. And during that time, I came up with a theory of how we can build machines that actually can learn and think and reason more the way we do. And I've had a number of companies now over the last 15 years to develop this intelligence engine. And this culminates now in what we have, Aigo.ai. And we are very excited. We're on the threshold of launching what we call a personal assistant, which is basically a personal assistant that you own. It adapts to you. You own the data, and you can have a real conversation with it. So that's sort of a very quick outline of my history.
Cool. Thank you so much, Peter, for that for the introduction. And can you tell us a little bit about Aegoai and what's your mission, so to speak, in the tech industry? Let's put it that way. And then we're going to move on to Tulio. He's going to be asking a set of great questions that he has assembled. So let's continue with that, please.
Right. So our mission is to provide a hyper-intelligent, hyper-personalized assistant to everyone in the world. I mean, that's what we'd like to do. It's something like you see in the movies, like in Her or Jarvis. People might have seen that. An assistant that's there permanently for you, that learns about you, that can really help you with life, that can help you optimize your life. That really becomes one of the ways we described it as your exocortex. It's an extension of your brain. That's ultimately our mission. Now, there's a lot of work to be done in that, but we have the core technology available now that we are ready to commercialize in Aigo.ai. And we are looking at really everywhere that you might interact with the world, whether that is in your car and you want to just be able to talk to your car, whether it's adjusting the aircon or music, or whether you actually, while you're in the car, you want to say, remind me to pick up the kids on the way home, or put something on my calendar or whatever. So it could be in the car, it could be in your home, it could be helping you with software. So if you're sitting in front of a computer and you're trying to do your taxes or your accounts or whatever, you could talk to the computer and ask it, can you show me what my, get me this form or show me this number. It could be used in games, in robots. So the intelligence engine that we have really can be used anywhere in the world. But our ultimate mission and goal is particularly as a personal assistant.
Great. Thank you again, Peter. And okay, I'm going to stop here because I know that Tulio is about to step in and take on the mic. So, Tulio, you want to do the honors?
Hi, Peter. Good to see you again. So, Forrester published last year 10 waves of AI that are considered hyper-growth for the next 10 years. One of them was NLP, decision engines, virtual assistants, but they track them separately. Are you saying that you are focused on something that kind of merges the three? A virtual assistant that has also a decision engine and also uses NLP? Can you walk us through a little bit of what's the sort of differentiation and value proposition of what you do?
Absolutely. It's very definitely natural language understanding, and it's definitely a personal assistant, and an assistant, and it's also a decision system. But maybe I can sort of transition into the topic, that I chose today, the third wave of AI, because there are other ways of handling natural language to some degree than what we're doing. And to explain that, let me kind of start what the third wave means. In fact, the term the third wave of AI came about from a talk at a conference that DARPA presented. And they spoke about the limitations of current AI systems and that we need to move beyond them and that we need a third wave. Now, why third wave? Well, the first wave is basically how programming used to be done, where you have a flow chart and you write a program that, specifically explains every step. It's a procedural kind of approach, plus all of the associated things. And that's been going on for decades. That's sort of the traditional programming. That's the first wave. Now, the second wave hit us about 6-7 years ago, which is all to do with big data. And that's where basically the terms deep learning, machine learning, big data come in, which has been really, really successful. And it really has been a sort of a new wave of AI that has made speech recognition much better, image recognition much better. It has advanced, self-driving cars, the features that we have, sentiment analysis, and all of those kinds of things. So it's incredibly successful in many areas. But the second wave relies entirely on big data. You need to have a big data set to be able to train the model. And basically, it only works for situations where the model is static. So you can collect a whole lot of data. So you can, for example, figure out what are all the different ways that somebody might say, I want a weather report. Might say, do I need an umbrella? Do I need to take my umbrella? That might be a trigger. There might be tens of thousands of ways of basically asking for, that you want to know what the weather is. So they collect all of the different ways that you can say that, and then basically build a model. And when the model hears anything that sounds like one of these things, it'll basically trigger the weather report. And that's how basically Siri and Alexa and Google Assistant and all of those work. Now, the problem with that is You may say something similar, but you really want to buy an umbrella, or you may be a foreigner and you want to know what an umbrella is. And the systems really aren't smart enough to understand the context. And, the model was just trained as blah, blah, blah umbrella, then, okay, we'll trigger the weather report. So they really don't understand what you're saying. It's just a certain pattern, a certain stimulus will trigger that response. The same with, Uber, or tell me the time, or put something on my calendar, and so on. But there's no understanding, there's no context. And that's the inherent limitation of these statistical big data systems. And that was what DARPA was talking about, that they say we need to overcome those limitations, because intelligence is really fluid. Intelligent means you need to be able to understand things that somebody says. You need to take that context into account. You need to be able to learn new things that you can then use in an intelligent conversation. And it's that third wave of AI that we've been working on for the last 15, 20 years. It's a fundamentally different approach where our system learns interactively. So to give you a very simple example of what we would expect from an intelligent system, if I'm talking to a 5-year-old child and I say just 6 words, something very, for us, very simple. I say, my sister's cat, Spock, is pregnant. Now, not very complicated, but basically what a 5-year-old child would learn is, okay, Peter is speaking. Peter obviously has a sister. The sister owns a cat. The cat's name is Spock. And Spock is probably a male, you think initially, because the name is male. But then you find out Spock is pregnant. So, okay, must be a female cat. And the 5-year-old child will know all of these things immediately, instantaneously. And the next sentence that you say when you say she's really big, you know the cat is big, And a week later, if you might ask, have the kittens arrived, And you would make sense of all of these things. Now, first and second wave, second wave approaches can't deal with that at all. They wouldn't learn anything. You might be lucky if you get a Star Trek episode because it picked up the word Spock, and you want to watch Star Trek or something, So there's no learning, and that's really not intelligence. So that's really what the third wave is about, to finally have artificial intelligence that can learn interactively, that can reason, that remembers what you said earlier, that can have a real conversation. And that's what our project's all about.
It sounds to me that would be pretty amazing in assisting us in all kinds of things. What's the thought process? Where do you think this will be of most use? Healthcare, pharmaceutical research? What's the vision?
Yeah,
why this is going to be useful to people?
Right. So the vision of where it's going to be useful, we have actually, it's very clear, it's going to be everywhere. I mean, natural language speaking is our natural mode of communication. And so whether it's, in augmented reality glasses that you're wearing and you want to give instructions to your glasses, just talking to the glasses, say, hey, show me this, or what does this mean? Or, look over there, look up this. Again, a natural language understanding agent would help there. In robots, if you want to talk to a robot, again, a natural language interface. You don't want to program the thing or have some obscure machine language. You want to just be able to talk to it in natural language. Say to the robot, go and fetch me a beer out of the fridge. But it needs to understand that, and say, well, if you're talking, what kind of beer do you like? And know that you don't have to, every time have to say where the fridge is, what kind of beer you like, or what you mean by that. So it's whether it's for software, and in terms of industries, all of the industries really need this, but some of them are just going to be much slower in adopting this new technology. I mean, healthcare is sort of infamous for being slow. Legal and insurance, banking, and so on tend to be very conservative in new technology. So things take a lot of time. We we have some very exciting applications in the pipeline where we're using Aigo as an interface to software. So if you are using some fairly complex software, let's say business intelligence software, so that's software that can show you the status of your company. So you might then just say to Aigo, show me the sales in Europe by product for the last 3 months. And Aigo will interpret that and know how to get the software to do that. So you don't have to remember what menus you need to select, what report you need to select and fill out forms, 3 months, product, buy this, and know how to navigate the software. You can just say what you want, and Aigo will take care of giving you the results. And then once the results pop up, you could say, okay, exclude Britain because they're going to Brexit, and it will know what to do. It'll have the context of what you're trying to do. Or you could say, show me the cash flow report that you ran last week. And Aigo will remember what cash flow report you ran last week and might even ask you, do you mean the one for Argentina or the one for Brazil? Because you may have run 2 different cash flow reports. So that kind of intelligent natural language interface that has memory and learns and reasons as a front end to complicated software there's a huge demand for that.
So I want to help the audience really understand the difference, right? Because what you described, there's a number of things that can do that today, right? But it has to be programmed and set up. It has to be, if I'm a financial services company or in the financial services tech, and I can create models that will give me the ability to get those kind of reports. But basically, it's been programmed. It's been pre-planned. It's got some algorithm, some algebraic reasoning built in, right? Whether it's wave 1 or 2 of AI.
Right.
The point is that exists. So, but what you're saying is, just like a personal assistant, how do I train what to look for? Is it something that it will learn from me on how to look up that report, or how's that going to be set up? That's where
right. So first of all, expanding a little bit on how it's different for the user. I mean, right now, if you want a new type of report that hasn't already been set up, usually it means you have to go to the IT department or to somebody who has the skills, and then it could take days, weeks, or months before you get that new report that you actually want. Whereas with Aigo, you would just say, that's what I'm looking for, and Aigo would configure that on the fly. And then the other thing is the complexity of navigating software. If you have to select a whole lot of options, again, you obviate that you can just speak in natural language. So the systems that are currently available, need to be programmed by an expert to give you the results, and B, you have to navigate through menus and forms that you have to fill in to give you your particular selections. So by having the intelligence engine of Aigo basically in between as a user interface, it takes care of all of that. So that makes the software a lot easier to use, and you can utilize all of its features.
That's interesting. I'm thinking the impact that could have, for example, on user experience. So when we go on a website, the workflow, the presentation, it's all within the browser. I mean, that's the big focus on the user experience, is simplify what we're clicking, what we're browsing through. But what you're proposing essentially would be something where I can talk to my assistant and say, hey, I need to look up some shoes. It'll go on Amazon. So walk us through that. What's different? Will that give me the ability to not even have to browse stuff, just kind of talk to it and things will pop up that are more relevant? Or how does that change the experience on how we use devices, for example, today? Right.
So I don't want to say that for every application, a natural language interface is the optimum. There are things, for example, if you're looking for a particular product and you're interested in what it looks like, or you're looking for a place to stay or a hotel, and you want to look at images. Now, you might still use Aigo to more quickly navigate through that. You could say to Aigo, next, 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 or I've seen those, don't show me that. But particularly in business software, it's very complex. It has a long learning curve. And the problem is that typically this is very expensive software that corporations buy. And typically the average user only uses a small percentage of the features because the learning curve is too big. And it takes them a long time to find what they want. And then, as you mentioned earlier, if they wanted a different kind of report, they have to ask their IT department to produce that report or some expert to produce it. So I think in particular in business, for people to get more out of the software, and of course the software vendors want that, their competitors don't come in. So the more useful the software is to the user, the easier it is to use, and the more features they use, the more lock-in you have, the more sticky the product is. So for the software vendors, that's of particular interest, and there's a lot of demand for that. I predict that 5-10 years from now, all software, all complex software, or moderately complex software, will have a natural language interface, and we see ourselves leading that. But that's on the enterprise side. I just wanted to give that as one example. That's sort of, we see there's a lot of traction, there's a lot of demand right now, and that can happen quickly, unlike maybe some of the medical applications. Robotics is also still lagging behind. There are really not that many robots out there that people use. Then, of course, the other thing is what I started talking about is really a personal assistant. And that's really the kind of the main focus we have right now. On the one hand, we have the enterprise making it easier to use software. And on the other hand, we have the personal assistant, and that would be for everyone. That would be for you, to help you remember things, to schedule things, to do search, to help you with shopping, to, everything, whether it's stress management that you need or, whatever. And that assistant, the reason we call it a personal assistant, we double up on the personal, is because the word personal is so important. Personal has 3 different meanings here that are important. The first one is you own it. You own and control it. Whereas the current bots you don't own. It's some mega corporation that owns it and controls it. And it's serving their agenda, not yours. If you're using Alexa, well, what does Amazon want from you? They want to collect a lot of data and sell you stuff, If you're using Google Plus, what do they want? Well, they want to collect all the data, that's what, and increase ads that they sell. So the first meaning of personal is, with our approach, you own and control your personal assistant. The second meaning of personal is that it adapts to you, it learns, which the current ones don't do. I mean, they don't remember anything about you. They don't really adapt. They're the same for everyone. So that it's personalized. And the third meaning of personal is in the sense of private, that whatever you tell it, you decide what of that information Aigo shares with other people and who it shares with. You might say, this is information only my family, only share it with my family. Other information is business information. So you control the data. And this is why, that's sort of the really exciting project for us, is to provide a personal assistant to everyone in the world.
Well, sign me up. That sounds great. I would love that. So let's dig in on the hood a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about your roadmap, where you are, what sort of tech stack you're using? Why did you make that choice? Give us a little bit more of under the hood look.
Tulio, sure. let me just interrupt. I'm sorry, but I'd like to interrupt real quick for 1 second for a quick announcement. Tulio, on your remote end, can you switch on the digital button for the chatbot, please?
Yeah, hang on. Go ahead. Okay,
good. So here it is. If you have any questions for Peter, you can send them over here on Twitter. So send it. Go to Twitter. You know how to use Twitter. Most people do. So just ask your question here. We'll read it back to Peter, and he'll respond right here on the spot. So, okay, button off. And there you go.
That's our advanced chatbot.
Thank you.
Okay.
This is
You don't even need Aigo, huh? You've got it all worked out.
I got everything. I got Tulio on that end, and I got me here with, All right, so humor aside. Okay, Tulio, sorry to interrupt.
No, that was fun. That was good. No, okay. Really, just would like to understand what's the technology behind it. Where are you? How far along you are?
Okay. Yeah, great question. So, sort of, let me start with the most technical. Our system is actually developed in C# on the .NET framework, which now, and we started that in 2001 when C# only just came out. Turned out to be a really, really good choice for us. I think it's a great language, and it's now available under Linux as well. It's not just Windows, so that's all great. But that's sort of on the most technical side. The technology that we have, the technology stack that we've developed, is all of our own. We developed it from the ground up, and there's actually a good reason for that. That to build a cognitive architecture, the third wave of AI, you need to have short-term memory that remembers what was said recently and what is currently in context. You need long-term memory, to permanently remember things. You need reasoning. The system needs to be able to think and reason about things. What makes sense? What could this mean? You need to make sense of complicated long sentences. You need to manage conversation. Who's speaking? Do I understand something? Do I need to clarify something? The thing is, all of these components of making sense of the sentence, long-term, short-term memory, reasoning, and so on, they all need to work together very closely so that they can help each other function better. That's the way our mind works automatically. When somebody says, is Bob coming along? What does that mean? Okay, what is the conversation that you're having? Which Bobs do you know? Are you talking about something at home, or you're talking about office? So it might turn out to be Bob the dog that isn't coming along to the picnic over the weekend, But so the system, to make sense of is Bob coming along, you really need short-term memory. What's the topic you're talking about? Long-term memory. Which Bobs do you know? And having the context, all of to be able to reason about that, and that's. To make that all work, we found that we really had to develop all of the technology ourselves from the ground up. And, we have more than 100 man-years of effort that has gone into this engine. Now, in terms of where we are, we actually already commercialized this technology in 2009. That was sort of the first generation of our product, and we commercialized it in the call center space. So now when you call up here in America or in Canada, if you call up AAA, for example, for roadside assistance, you'll be talking to one of our Aegos, the first generation Aigo, basically. And same with MGM Hotels use it, Carnival Cruises, Hyundai. So quite a lot of well-known companies that are using the first generation Aigo in the call center kind of space, where it's a fairly narrowly defined function that you're performing. Over the last 5 years, I have the new team, Aegoai, that has just been working on cranking up the IQ, making Aigo smarter and smarter and smarter, being able to handle more complicated sentences, more complicated conversations. And that's what we've been doing for the last 5 years. And now, just in the last half a year or so, last 6 months or so, we've been exploring very vigorously commercial applications, and we're basically ready to launch commercially. We have a token sale going on right now, basically, which will allow us to raise money and at the same time build a community of personal assistants of Aigo users. And you could see that on our dojo.live website, where we basically, launching the sale. So we are ready to commercialize as soon as the sale is done, end of July. We'll start rolling out the technology.
Great. One last question before I turn it over to Carlos to wrap it up, because time is flying. Yeah, we've done quite a bit in the travel tech space as a company for the past 11 years. In fact, there's a conference coming up next week as I'm listening to you, I started to think, do OTA or travel agencies, could they benefit from this and offering this to their end user, or is it more me as the end user having this on my device?
Yeah, I think it's because it's personalized. You having it on your device is much, much more useful, because it will learn your preferences. It'll know about your schedule. It'll know about your family. Whatever else you want to tell it, and it'll be able to do a much better job of that. Whereas if the travel agent had it, it would still have to ask you all of those questions, that your personal assistant would already know, well, at least a lot of them, it would already know. So as a personal assistant, where you could just say to Aigo, book me a trip to, San Francisco next week for 3 days, if it's done it several times before and knows what your constraints are in terms of what kind of hotels are acceptable to you and which ones aren't, and it might already know from other things why you want to go to San Francisco and exactly what, if you're attending a conference or whatever it is, and know that you need to arrive the night before, or, whatever the case may be. So absolutely, as a personal assistant, that would be the ultimate benefit. The travel agent could also use it, but it wouldn't be nearly as powerful as having it as a personal assistant.
So, Peter, how long before we see this in the marketplace? Is your strategy to go direct, or are you going to partner with some other players? What's the thinking?
We're looking at both. So as soon as our token sale is complete, July 31st, at the end of July, we are going to, then our focus will shift on actually implementing it, and we expect to have the first users using our system in the third quarter of this year. So that's just a few months from now, and then we will roll it out. It'll be a slow rollout because we first need to get feedback from people, make sure it's all robust and so on, and then we'll keep expanding that. So by the fourth quarter, early next year, we should have a very general rollout of the product.
Great. If I'm curious, what are you raising in terms of your token?
So we're raising between $20 and $40 million.
And okay, so it'd be great if we can put that on the landing page. Carlos.
Absolutely, we will do that.
Great. Well, Peter, it's been a pleasure. Good to see you again. Thank you for sharing this with us. It sounds to me like general AI is closer than we think. Some people saying 2080, and here you are working on it right now. So it's pretty interesting and exciting. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Well, thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Peter. And the only thing, I'm about to wrap up. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. But one more thing is, in general, based on your chosen topic, the third wave of artificial intelligence, if I ask you, what sort of final words of wisdom would you like to leave the audience with? What would this be, Peter?
Yeah, great question. I think the idea that I'd like to leave is just how valuable true artificial intelligence is to us. It will help us optimize our lives. It'll help us in so many ways. It's what I sometimes call it a fountain of rationality, because a lot of the things that we do that get in the way of optimizing our lives are things where we just are short-sighted. Our emotions get in the way, or we don't understand things well enough. And having an assistant that can ultimately help you think things through and give you good information, I think will really help us optimize our lives and work and deal with the complexities of life. So I personally look forward to having personal assistants help us optimize our lives. And please go and I publish on medium.com. We have a Telegram channel. That'll all be on our landing page, the reference to it. So please do chat with us, and I'm very happy to answer questions. Anybody who wants to contact me.
Oh, absolutely. And also keep in mind, if you're watching this either now or will be at a later time, Peter's contact info is going to be right there on the Dojo Live website. Just go to interviews and look for this interview, this conversation with Peter, and all the info is going to be in there. And so, Peter, well, the only thing left for me to do is simply send you a big thank you, because it's been an honor and a pleasure. And what could I say about the topic? You know, it doesn't get any more interesting than that. AI is not the future, but the present. But I look forward to just learning more about AI, of course, and also watch the company just pretty much take off to greater heights. So, Peter, thank you so much again. And folks, stay tuned. Just a quick announcement about next week. And next week, we're going to be having a conversation with Derek Ashong. He is the CEO and co-founder of AMP.it. So we're going to be talking about, well, we still don't have the topic, so I'm sorry to say that, but keep an eye on the dojolive website.
It'll be an interesting discussion. It's a Grammy-winning company.
Exactly. So thank you for that, Tulio. So, okay, guys, folks, everyone, thank you so much for one more episode of Dojo Live, connecting experts like you. Until next week, this is Carlos Ponce in Mexico City. Great afternoon, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.